Hello again. Now listen, I love talking, playing bar games, and drinking, but I find it a little odd that most bars in America have a parking lot. Hear me out. I can already smell the city slickers typing on their keyboards. The bar I go to has no parking lot because I live in a city. And look, I hear you, but I'm just gonna quickly say that this is my video, and I'm not going to count city bars. Greater America is built on this car-centric society, and that means most bars, especially in suburbs or small towns or out west, are gonna come with parking lots, full stop. Before we dive in, I'd like to preface this by saying I'm not an architect. Hell, I'm not even an architect student. I'm basing these statements on my own experience and research I found online. I'll link my sources below if you want to go deeper for yourself. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the design of American bars and why you're more likely to park next to one than walk in one. Let's start at the beginning. The first bar in what would become the United States was called the Three Mariners, opened by Samuel Cole in 1634, right in colonial Boston. It wasn't some neon-lit sports bar serving up fireball shots and having karaoke nights. It was a simple tavern where sailors, merchants, and townsfolk came together to drink, talk, and not die of cold or boredom. The thing is, nobody drove there, because you couldn't. You walked, or you rode a horse, or maybe if you were fancy and had money, you got Ubered in a horse-drawn carriage. These early American bars were built for pedestrian access, not vehicular. But then, a few centuries passed and... oh shit, we got highways, we got suburbs, motherfucker, we got cars, and we made a country built for driving, not walking anymore. No, but for real though, this brings us to the weird part. The modern American bar with its own parking lot. It's kind of a contradiction when you think about it, at least in my opinion. The core activity at a bar is drinking, and yet we've designed them to be accessed by car. Like, hey, have a few beers, now carefully operate a 2-ton death machine back to your house without killing or hurting anyone. It's not a sensible pairing, but yet it's the norm for us. Why? Let's go back in time once more.
After World War II, the United States experienced a boom in suburban development. The federal government invested heavily in highways and home ownership. The city started spreading out. At the same time, many places began to adopt what are called Euclidean zoning laws, a fancy name for separating areas into categories like residential, commercial, and industrial.
Sounds organized, right? But it also means that places like bars couldn't be down the street from your house anymore. They had to be in a designated commercial zone, often far from where people lived, and if that wasn't enough, local governments began implementing parking minimums, laws that literally required businesses to build certain numbers of parking spaces based on the size of their building. So if you wanted to open a bar, you couldn't just rent a cool corner storefront anymore like you used to. You had to carve out a chunk of land for cars, and it didn't matter if your neighborhood was walkable or if your patrons didn't drive. If the law said you needed 20 spaces, you're gonna need 20 spaces. Over time, that led to the typical American bar design we see today. A squat building, a massive parking lot, and maybe a patio if you're lucky. And that design of American bars isn't just aesthetic, it really affects your experience in my opinion. You drive to the bar, you drink, but not too much, you drive back, and there's no walking through a lively street, no bumping into a late night bakery that might still be open, or no hanging on the street corners with your friends. Now, let's compare that to Europe. In most European cities, especially the older ones, bars and pubs are built right into the fabric of everyday life. You walk there, you bike, or you take the public transit. The bar is around the corner from your flat, or tucked between a bakery and a bookstore. Dedicated parking lots, almost unheard of. That is because European citizens prioritize walkability and transit. They have different planning philosophies compared to the Western cities. Streets are narrower, land is more expensive, and zoning laws tend to allow for mixed-use development. This means that you might have an apartment above a bar, a grocery store next door, and a tram stop down the block. Sure, if you're in rural France or if you're a roadside pub in Ireland, you'll find parking lots there for sure. But the default way of accessing a bar in Europe is on foot or public transit, and that changes the entire vibe. People linger, they bar hop, and they walk home drunkenly. They're part of social fabric that isn't built around private vehicles. Meanwhile, in the US, the very idea of walking to a bar in many small towns is almost laughable, and this is not an accident. It's the result of decades of policy, zoning, and design choices that put the car first. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that bars, like many other parts of American life, are a product of their environment. The parking lot isn't just a design feature, it's a symptom of deeper values embedded in how we build our towns and cities. Values that often prioritize cars over community and convenience over connection. You can still have a great night at your local strip mall bar, no one's saying otherwise, but it's worth noticing how that space is shaped, not just physically, but socially, by the decisions we've made over time. And maybe, just maybe, we can start to imagine different ways of building, ways that make room for people first. Before we wrap up, I think we have to talk about the real consequence of this whole setup: drunk driving. Because when we build bars that require you to drive there, we're also increasing the likelihood that someone's going to get behind the wheel after a few too many drinks. It's not just a design fault, it's a public health issue. According to the World Health Organization, around 1.3 million people die each year globally due to road traffic crashes. In the United States alone, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reports that over 13,000 people died in drunk driving related crashes in 2021. That's more than one person every 40 minutes. And we're not just talking about people driving home from the bar. We're talking about pedestrians, other drivers, and entire families affected by one person's bad decision. Here's a piece of data that really stood out to me. Countries with more walkable infrastructure and robust public transit, like the Netherlands, Sweden, or Japan, tend to have far fewer alcohol-related traffic deaths per capita. It's not that people in those countries drink less, it's that they're not expected to operate a vehicle afterwards. The design choice of building a parking lot next to a bar plays a role in something much bigger, something much more deadly. I'd like to take a moment and recognize the method of calling an Uber when you go out, and I applaud all of you for practicing safe and fun drinking. Thank you for improving not only your night to be more fun and, yes, potentially more expensive, but also thank you for making our roads safer. Below are links that I used during my research into this video, and a big thank you to Periscope Films and Kino Library for saving all the old footage I used in this video. If you have any information or anything to add, please leave a comment down below. And again, I'm not a student studying zoning laws or architecture or even history. My name is just Kevin, and I like to talk about things I find interesting. Take care.